Hi, this is Trevor, and welcome back to our weekly Tarot Card Challenge. Today is Saturday, November the 8th, 2014, and we'll be getting into our card of the week shortly. You can find the videos for our other cards of the week that are starting to really pile up on this YouTube channel, or you can find them as well as information about my work, how to book an appointment with me in person, or the additional aspect for my distant friends and clients, or people who want to access me outside of my usual appointment schedule over Skype. Which is similar. It's a little bit of a different medium, but I'm really enjoying working with that format. So again, that information is on my website at trevorsense.com. So as I said, we've been working through the cards, and we've been putting aside the cards that we've covered already, and I'm shuffling the cards. We're about to find out what our card of the week is. And again, the cut. And, ooh, one of the challenging characters in the deck, the Knight of Swords. And the Knights are part of the court cards in the Minor Arcana. As you've heard me mention before, tarot is similar in its structure to playing cards, where they have a Jack, Queen, and King, but in tarot we have Page, Knight, Queen, King. Now, this is where I particularly have to really give props to Pamela Coleman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite, the co-creators of this deck. The Rider Tarot deck is really quite specific in its illustration. There's a reason for things. It might not be, to some people's taste, the most artistically pleasing deck, but the illustration is so succinct, it is so on the mark. There are four knights in that section of the court cards. There's the four elements that we've been talking about, and each of the four knights is depicted on horseback. Now, oftentimes in tarot symbolism, horses are not just about travel, but we can tell a lot about how energy is moving through a situation in terms of how the horse is being ridden. So it has a lot to do kind of symbolically with how we are kind of directing force and directing energy. And each of the four knights in the very traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, they're all riding horses, but they're each riding their horses different ways. So we'll talk about those other knights as they come along. But the Knight of Swords, this horse is leaping through the air. It's like charging into battle. And look at the clouds in the background. It's like tremendous climate change, and you can see the trees bending in the wind. This figure is leaping into that force. Now, the element associated with swords is air, and that can have a lot to do kind of more with the mental function of things. Part of how I work with tarot, and there's different approaches, is to kind of figure out what's the right tool for the job. Are we going to be using our feeling function, our thinking function, our sense of constructiveness and building, or are we going to be paying attention to the values, the sort of worth or what is worthwhile in a situation? So this is swords. This is this strong kind of analytical energy. And knights are questing. They're in a kind of purpose-driven mode. And the Knight of Swords is leaping into battle. The sword is kind of really being put forward. And I find when the Knight of Swords is describing a person, this is somebody who really is needing to make their point. And they might have a tendency to overuse their exclamation points. Nowadays with communication online, we all have that friend who tends to post everything in capital letters, and there's an abundance of exclamation points. Well, that could be some Knight of Swords energy. But, the court cards, when they're describing people, are really kind of describing a predominant element with that person. We all have all four elements within us, but the Knight of Swords is really leading on that level. But he's a knight, he's still questing. I remember a funny piece of advice I received a long time ago. You have to be careful if you're dating a first-year psych student, because everything has to do with that mental association, and I think the word is a bit sophomoric sometimes when we're starting to pick up on those things. And maybe the Knight of Swords is kind of taking a very analytical approach with things, needing to be right. And I think of another thing, something my dad taught me a long time ago, and it comes back to my life again and again, is sometimes what's more important than being right is what gets left. So there is that sense of making a point. I think there's a lovely French word, a provocateur, somebody who's provocative, somebody who's kind of stirring things up. And that can have worth and that can have value. I think we have to really be very careful about not wanting to have good guys and bad guys, but more kind of seeing and understanding where the constructive elements can run. So a Knight of Swords is sometimes what we need in terms of protection and sometimes that sense of having to take a stand with things and to be a bit opinionated. And, but it is opinion. It is perception. It is not necessarily the whole truth. In relationships, the Knight of Swords is going to be somebody who's generally pretty definite and distinct in terms of things. But you might want to watch for his tendency to make statements rather than to ask questions. Somebody who might tell you how you feel rather than ask you how you feel. So there's a challenge involved there. But oftentimes, when a knight comes up in a reading, I like to remember that it is also talking about not just that person, but maybe the mode we ourselves are in. If you're encountering a knight in the reading, maybe you have to look at your own quest, what it is you're after. And do you want to have people that are just going to agree with you? Or do you want to have somebody who is occasionally going to say, what do you mean by that? Or what's your point? And is going to kind of challenge that. Conflict is not a bad thing. Sometimes it can be a very healthy element in terms of our learning and our growth. And I like to remember that, especially when I'm dealing with people who push my buttons a little bit. It's always an opportunity to learn and to grow. So those are just some random thoughts around the Knight of Swords. He's certainly never a dull moment, but watch out for overusing the capitals and also the exclamation points. It's been fun sharing with you once again, and we'll look forward to sharing with you again next week. Till then, I hope everyone is having some wonderful sunshine and a good day. Take care. Bye for now.